morning from Norton 100 here at Welford Wharf. It's fantastic weather, and this is my name's Callum Lockie, and this is my Norton CS1 from 1928. CS1 stands for Camshaft 1, being the first ever overhead camshaft engine that Norton made, and because of this distinctive shape of the cam drive, it's nicknamed the cricket bat Norton. I absolutely love it. It's pretty well all original from 1928 and is running, and I absolutely love it to bits. I would certainly intend to ride it around a fair bit, but would also love to race it. So I will investigate that as time goes by.
My name is Anthony Curzon. This is a 1958 Norton Nomad, but it was sold as a 1959 bike. It was exported to Hap Jones at 2 Clinton Park in San Francisco. It was made only for the American market, and also some went to Europe, some went to Mexico, some went to Canada. Hap Jones imported 181 600 Nomads. They only ever imported one 500, and this is it. They were raced in Europe, raced in Canada. The 500 class in Canada had a special class, so there was also in Europe, one held the Motocross Championship in 1960, and also a 600 Nomad held the #1 plate in the desert, District 37 in 1960. It's got a 500 motor. The front forks are special because they've got outside springs that come off the 500T. The frame is not a model 77, it's a ES2. Lots of bits on it are very special. The car is twin carb. The 600 developed 36 brake horsepower. The heater's an HF 1441. The petrol tank was special for this bike. The 500s had a black top seat with white sides, but the 600s had a white top seat with black sides, and the reason they did it was to show the difference between the bikes when they were being tested by the factory. So the factory knew when it was outside which bike was out being tested. It had a white top for the 600 because as it raced in the desert, then it reflected the sun. The handlebars are as it was made, and this is almost as it was made. I can't get an original centre stand, so it's got some pattern centre stand. The exhaust system had to be specially made. The rear swinging arm is a special one-off just for the Nomads, much thicker, but it's near as damn it as I can get it.
My name's Chris Davis. I'm the chairman of Bristol Branch Norton Owners Club, and I'm also the proud owner of this Donington Norton Commando 961. I bought it new in 2018, and since then I've done about 10,000 miles on it. It's been to rallies in Holland, it's been to rallies in Spain, and I have to say it's been a very reliable motorcycle. I've had very few problems with it, and you know, my ownership has been a pleasure so far. Mind you, I've got to drive it back home again, so I better be quite sure what I'm saying. But yes, I do have a number of other Nortons, but the good thing about the 961 is that I can start it on the button, and as I get older I don't like kick-starting things anymore.
Hello, my name's Phil Wilson from the Shropshire Norton Owners Club, and we've come down with Ethel, who is a 1924 flat tank Norton. All these motorcyclists. This is a 500 side valve, 3-speed hand change, and it does have brakes, but as far as actually riding it goes, the brakes are null and void. the front brake is a drum, the rear is a wedge of rubber that goes into a dummy rim here. And I can say that having tried to brake several times, I've now fried the paint on both pieces of equipment. It's got very long legs. When you're riding one of these things, it has got very long legs. It's surprising. It will stonk along in top at 20 mile an hour, and I have had on a, dare I say, the digital speedo that we put on, I have seen 50 miles an hour, and it'll keep that up. It's quite happy at that. The other thing, of course, is it is total loss oiling. There's no oil pump on the engine. You have to operate this plunger and a drip feed, which is like through a sight feed glass, much the same as you would see in a steam engine. Of course, it's got the unusual thing of having aluminium footboards, and it handles very well, but it handles very, very quickly. You've got very narrow 26-inch tall wheels on a long wheelbase, and it is like a rat up a drain pipe. The other things about it, it was about £65 when it was new, which was very expensive, of course. You could buy a house for about £300 in 1924 when she was made. The other thing, of course, is this has got the optional extra of a speedo with a cable and gear drive there, and that was nearly another £30 on the price of the bike. So it was quite an investment at the time. And the other thing, of course, we've got acetylene lighting, which actually does work. We've got gas lights at the back, gas lights at the front. Here's the carbide generator, so you would put calcium carbide in the bottom in that can there, water in the top, and then you would adjust the drip feed, so it just drops the water onto the calcium carbide, makes the acetylene gas that comes up the rubber pipes into the headlamp. Now, we were ever so lucky, really, really lucky, that we were at an antique centre, and I happened to spot this little leather container, and it's the Chemico Carbide Company, and it is actually a 1920s leather container to hold your tin of Chemico Carbide. So I've actually got the original tin from the 20s in there, and that would have had your carbide, which looks just like little lumps of rock, and they have to be kept bone dry, of course, otherwise it'll fizz and go off. Well, that's a real rarity and a nice little touch with the bike. The last thing I'd say about it really is that it hasn't got a twist grip. It's a lever throttle, so you've got the mixture there and the air there. That's your lever throttle, so that takes a bit of getting used to if you're used to a normal twist grip. Fortunately, we've got several bikes that are in the same manner. It is like, sometimes it's like flying a World War I aeroplane that's been shot by Banner von Richthofen. It can get very exciting, and particularly on the pothole that is now known as Shropshire. But anyway, as I say, she's great fun to ride. Oil in the front of the tank and petrol in the back, and we run her with a bit of castor oil in as well, so we get that nice smell.
Good morning, I'm Ian Loram. I'm here at Norton 100 on a lovely day. Come up in a van, but did go to a pub outside this area to ride in, which was a lovely, pleasurable journey in. This is my 1929 ES2, owned since 2006. One of my very favourite bikes out of the 76 Nortons that I owned. I just love the saddle tank era, although it was only for several years, but lovely. This particular bike, being the ES2, it's the posh version of the Model 18. So it's basically got the triple spar on the back, just like the CS1. This, according to George Cohen, was set up for racing, and it's got the twin float bowl carburettor. The one big failing we find in obviously trying to get parts and that is the gear change on the 3-speed gearbox. Relying on the spring here keeping these two plates together with a V and an inverted V to actually engage the gears. So we've adapted it by putting a bigger plate on there with a plunger unit, which is absolutely fine, so you get positive gears there. It's a total loss oil system, but on a sister bike of this Model 18 that I had, I did Land's End John O'Groats and the 500 route, doing over 1,500 miles and only used about 6 pints of oil. So it's very economical like that. Girder forks with the check springs, horn, which works. Not a lot else to say apart from it's an absolutely wonderful bike to ride. But I do cheat because I did put a gel seat underneath here, which makes it so much more comfortable when you're doing long journeys. I wish Colin and everyone the best for a super day, and thank you very much for interviewing me.
Hello, I'm Peter Holland of the Norton Owners Club. I've had this Norton Commander for 25 years. Before that, it was my brother's, and he very kindly gave it to me. My brother, in turn, bought it from auction when the West Midlands Police sold it. It was their last Norton Commander in service. If we have a look at the bike, you'll see that facing the camera, there's a couple of little dots in the side. That's where the old horn, because it had air horns, there was no air horn motor on there. I stripped out a lot of the weight. Very heavy bike this. It's a twin cylinder rotary. Wow, sidecar going by. Twin cylinder rotary, and the police force in West Midlands took quite a lot of them. They were heavily encouraged by Mrs. Thatcher to do so, and they remained loyal to Norton for longer than I think any other police force. So this particular model, 1989, left service in 1994. And with me, it's been a great bike. I've added a pillion seat. My wife likes it as well. It's extremely comfortable, a long distance tourer, happy on the motorways, and it's just rattled over 80,000 miles, and I'm sure it's going to do another 80,000 miles. It's a lovely bike.
Hello, I'm Andy Bevington. This is my 350 Navigator, 1963. It was my father's bike before mine. He bought two of them in the early 80s, some 43 years ago now, and he ended up restoring this. He bought a deluxe and a standard. This is the standard model, and he made a good one out of the two. When I was 16, I recovered this seat myself, did all the stitching, and still looks good today. The bike's done a few long runs. We went over to Clonakilty in it for the Norton National Rally. The bike's covered again. I put new silencers on it last year. I went over it, all over it to service it earlier this year. It's a great little bike for running around on. I've come nearly 90 miles today from Norwich across to here, 3.25 hours. But as long as you're not in a rush, they go well.
Hi, Steve. This is my 1969 750S. I've had it about 15 years. I've known the bike since the early 70s when we used to go rallying, and the gentleman, so that was his second owner, so I'm now the third owner, and it stood for years and years and years in this chap's house I bought it off. It is a genuine 750S. It's a UK model. It needed engine rebuild when I bought it, so that was completed by Norman White. Excellent job, pulls like a train. When the chap I bought it off first bought it, his wife, I believe, sent it to Gus Coons, and they had some work done on it in Gus Coons in London, hence it's still got the 5-speed gearbox. So I've gradually done it up over the years. It's running superb. I've got strength and swinging arm. When Norman White done the engine, he also put me the new uprated the elastics, ice elastics, and the brakes, everything worked perfect. I love riding it. It's the first Norton I've ever had. I've usually had Triumphs, and I've still got Triumphs, but I find this a pleasure to ride. Absolute pleasure. It's a cracking bike.
Okay, this is my 1947 Model 18. It's a trials version. I'm Chris Strether, and you will see that it's an unusual modification on this particular, only on 47 frames. That the factory, in order to reduce the wheelbase on these trials bikes, the down tube was bent on purpose. And it looks rather unusual, but it's a feature of these. So it is a trials bike with a Watsonian competition chair, yeah, I've had it about, I don't know, 20 years now. It's done me very well. It was ridden by Fred Vise as in the trials, and the sidecar was rotten, and he put it all together. Unfortunately, if you like, having repaired it and then put a new aluminium cover over it, he then sprayed it. So obviously it wouldn't have been shiny like this, but I haven't got the heart to take the paint off, so we ride it like this.
Hello there, I'm Tim Harrison. This is my Norton Rotary 1989 model. It's got a Wankel engine, which is very unusual. So the engine rotates rather than with a reciprocal motion. I actually can prove to you, or anybody who asks me, that I can balance a 50p coin on the tank cover and rev it up to 7,000 revs. And 9 times out of 10 it won't fall over. It's a very smooth running bike, great tourer, but actually quite heavy. I've converted the rear end. This is the later version rear end, so that I can fit Krauser Commanders, Krauser panniers, which enables me more easily to go touring on the bike. So I've done, I've got a second one of these, and all in all, I've done well over 100,000 miles on these bikes, and they're a great bike for anybody who wants a good touring Norton, which is slightly more modern than some of the older ones you see here today.
I'm Phil Hannum. I come from Portsmouth, and you're looking at me and my Norton Dominator 650. It's the biggest jigsaw I've ever put together in my life. I got it totally as individual separate pieces collecting over 9-10 months before assembling it all together in 2009. It's been very, very reliable since I've had it. This is the colour that it was built in. The engine is a 650 Manxman that got exported to America in 1961. One of the first 650s that the Bracebridge factory built, well before the 650 SSs arrived on the scene. The frame, however, is a year later and is actually one of the first 650 SS frames, but all the bits fit together quite well, and they're as reliable as a Swiss clock. I've improved it over the years I've had it. I've added a few extras to make it a little bit more tasteful for me, like the cafe style. It's got electronic ignition, which is totally reliable. It's got a big single carb on it, courtesy of Amel, and it's really, really the bee's knees for me. I love it. It is so good, and it gets me, well, it's got me all around Europe and around most of the events in the UK.
Right, I'm Alan, and I've ridden here today on a Norton ES2 from 1959. What's special about this bike is that it has the wide-line featherbed frame, which was used for racing Nortons in the 1950s, and eventually the general public were allowed to have them on road going bikes, and it wasn't until 1959 that they put the 500 single cylinder engine in, which made, in my opinion, quite a super bike. Handles like a dream, even though it's not particularly powerful. If you want a powerful one, you need the International engine, really, or a Dominator. But the ES2 didn't appear with this frame until 1959. So, and they dropped it again in 1960. So, because they went to the slimline frame. So, it makes it quite a rare machine, really. And I think there's quite a few here. There's more here today than I've ever seen together. So that's going to be quite something. I've had this bike, I think, about 4 years now. And I bought it, it was a non-runner, been in a shed for years and years. So I had to do a bit of fixing up to make it roadworthy. But it's all totally original. Well, I say that, a couple of things aren't original, but most of it is. And I've even got the original buff logbook, which is quite nice when you've got the whole history of the machine and you know who owned it previously. So that makes it quite special, and I like it.
Hi, my name is Brian Pears. This is my Norton Commando High Rider, 1974. I bought it off its probably original owner when I was in the States in 1990 when I worked out there for General Motors. And after I finished working there, I rode it to Canada, down to Florida, California, and diagonally back. And then I shipped it back. I did have the intention of converting it to a roadster or something, but it just works really, really well. So I've left it as it is, and I'm glad I did. The tank is not original. It's two Harley Davidson tanks welded together, but I do have all the original kit if I ever need to convert it back. I've got a bad knee, so I'll put a Colorado electric start on. So quite proud of this. It's part of my life. I rode this around the States wearing this jacket and these boots back in late 1980s.
Hello, my name is Graham Inger, and I've owned this bike, which is a 350cc Manx Norton 1961. I've owned this bike for 10 years and it's in original condition as it left the factory in its day. It's never been altered. It's been raced in the Isle of Man TT. It came 13th place in 1964, ridden by a chap named Peter Hughes. And I parade it as much as I can. I use the bike, and it's actually from this venue here, I'm going to the Moto Coops Festival at Dijon. So that's looking forward to that.
I bought the bike at auction in 1984 to do a few Banbury runs, and then, conscious of leaving the wife behind, I thought I'd try and find a sidecar to put on the side of it. So I eventually found the chassis and then the body of a sidecar, but it was in an awful state. So the wife wasn't really impressed when I brought it home, but I spent the next winter rebuilding the sidecar and eventually connected it to the bike, and I think I did the first Banbury on it in 1988. She was rather more pleased with the result than what it was when I brought it home. So it's never let me down on a Banbury run. I did have a little bit of a clutch problem last year, but it still made it round the whole circuit. So I keep my fingers crossed every year that it's not going to let me down.
Good afternoon everyone, what a lovely day we've got here for Norton 100. I've been lucky enough to ride in on this 1959 wide-line featherbed ES2 500 single, pushrod single. It's not my bike, I do own a Norton, I have an Atlas, but my pal Roger Kimball, who owns this machine, has let me borrow it for the day, and it's given me a wonderful ride in. I'm surprised at how well it cruises at 60 miles an hour. I rode over initially on a 500 BSA, and this is definitely a smoother bike. So I'm very privileged to be able to ride in on it today. It's a coil ignition model. It needs to be liberally tickled for it to start, but it's a first kick starter, and it being the featherbed frame, it steers really well. As a youth, I bought an ES2 pre-featherbed. I think I was only 17 with a double adult sidecar, and I was very impressed as a youth by this ES2 because it seemed such a strong bike, and hauling a double adult, sometimes with 2 or 3 pals stood up in the sidecar going to the local cafe. I was amazed at how well that bike pulled and how good the standard brakes were. If memory serves, it cost me £15, and that's what I sold it for. That would have been about 1967. Norton ES2 is probably one of the longest living models in the history of motorcycling. I think I haven't done my homework on it, having just picked it up today, but I think the ES2 was around from before 1925 to about 63, and then if you include the AMC 500 models, up to 66. So this machine has wonderful endurance and longevity, and rightly so, because based on the Model 18, that won so many races in the 20s. The pushrod 500 490 overhead valve model won. Well, we're here at Norton 100, and as well as trying to get at least 100 Nortons, the organiser Colin Cheney, I think, is hoping to get nearer 200, and he might well be on course. But so it celebrates the number of Nortons, but also it celebrates 100 years of Norton winning the senior TT and the sidecar TT, basically with engines similar to this. It was a remarkable achievement, and James Lansdowne Norton was absolutely thrilled. 1924, his lifetime ambition was to win the senior Isle of Man TT, and he won it. Alec Bennett, the rider, and sadly, Pa Norton, as everybody knew him in his day, died the next year. But he was celebrated by Birmingham City Council with a parade through Birmingham to celebrate those 1924 wins 100 years ago, and that was his last public appearance. So it's very fitting, and machines with engines such as this, basically a straightforward machine. Most were magnetos, but by the time they got to this one, coil, it just has a wonderful history, and it will always be a great bike.
Hi, my name's Andy Murden, and this is my 1975 JPN, or John Player Norton, which were built by the factory. I built 200 of them. We believe this is an original one, which I acquired in 1982. It was quite slow in its day, and very, very quiet, because they were made for the American market. The silencers were very quiet. So we decided to expand the engine to a 920 kit. We put smoothbore carburetors on it, free flow exhaust, belt drive, electronic ignition, 13-inch disc brake, locking it up front. So now it goes and stops very well indeed. Having owned it 42 years, the time has really come for me to let someone else take care of it, as I don't ride it very often anymore. So it's up for sale, and I'm open to offers, so let me know. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeff, and this is my bike. It's a Model 50 engine, been bored out to 520. I've had all the head done and all that sort of stuff. This downdraft here. I took this off and remade this, welded this in and made it into a tacho drive. This bit here, that's just an oil catch tank, saves all the oil going over the back of the bike. But all these things I designed myself and got my brother to make them. Same as in the back wheel. It's a lovely thing, I love riding it, and it's quite quick. With it being 520 now, it's very lively. So It took me 3 years to do it and get it right, but now it's right. So if you need to know anything, this is a modification I did here because I couldn't get it to seal on the oil. So I drilled the head and got into the oil ports where it goes back through through the barrel into the casting, through the head, but I just could not get it to seal. So I blocked it all off and drilled in, put some pipes on it, and the 2 pipes there coming from the other side of the head into this main pipe here, which goes back into the timing chest, and that sorted all the oil leaks out there. I made the exhaust, this back of the exhaust myself, and all the brackets and all these. The front part here is all made. This is all made by myself, and yeah, there it is.
Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the Wharf Inn near Welford. This is the Norton 100. It's basically a quick video, introduce myself. So I'm Stuart Bodycoat. I do the technical advice for the Norton 961s. If you've got any queries, I'm happy to help wherever I can. The back of the Road Holder magazine, you'll find the contact email address for us. Get in touch and hopefully see you and meet soon. Cheers, goodbye.
Oh, good afternoon. My name's Tony Lockwood. I do the 961 register for the Norton Owners Club. You'll find me in the front pages in the officers section, email and phone number. I've currently been doing the register now for about 2 years since I bought a 961 myself, an SE. I was interested, like you do with any Norton, you want to find a history. Noisy but I'd always wanted to find out the history of my bike, so I started that, and I wondered how many 961 SEs were existing. Started looking, that made me start the register, and it's gone on to officially for the club, and so now I'm trying to do that to find out how many total bikes have been made. Currently I've got about 260 bikes on the register, and we think there's about 2,400 were built originally. Going by DVLA, there's 600 bikes registered, 250 are on the road at any one time. But as today, we've got 25 961s here, which is the largest numbers that we've ever had. And it proves that they're bikes that could be used and cherished. And there are lots of modifications. I mean, Stuart has done this. It's a perfect machine. It's great. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Tim Roberts, and this is my Norton International 1933. It has a 1956 engine because the existing engine was beyond economic repair. I bought it in 2020 at a Bonham's auction, and it needed a serious amount of TLC. I've since gone on to maintain it for mechanical restoration only, leaving the patina. This is the first year I've been riding it, and it truly is a lovely thing to ride and starts very easily. Looking forward to many more years of riding it, seeing as it languished in a shed for over 50 years. There's not a lot else I can say apart from it's a real pleasure to ride vintage motorcycles. Thank you.
Go. Hi, I'm George Farrington, and this is my Norton 650 Mongrel. I acquired this bike 26 years ago as a barn relic from my then father-in-law, and I've spent a fair amount of money and time over the years making it my bike. It's not standard Norton for many things. For example, the front brake is from a Laverda 750. Otherwise it's mostly Norton. The electrics are more modern, so it's reliable, and generally it's a bike I can ride whenever I like. It's painted different colours because I could, and definitely not as it came out of any factory. I like the silencers because they are a nicer shape to me, to the Norton ones. Others will disagree. But generally, I enjoy riding it because it's a Norton.
Okay, I'm Doug Clark from the Warwickshire branch of the Norton Owners Club, and this is my Norton not the ES2, I mean Big 4 600 side belt. I bought it in November of last year, and this is the first long journey it's had, so touch wood, it's okay at the moment. But it's a bit of a difficult one to start. The only modifications I've done to it, it needed new valves and valve guides. I put them in, and I'll put new valve springs in it as well. And I've also converted it to 12 volt electric. And when it's running, it's okay. But it is a bit of a stubborn one to start. Yeah, it is pretty much original. The person I bought it off of, it was his father's, and it stayed in the family pretty much right until I bought it. So it's quite a good machine for that. Yeah, but it's an ongoing project, and I shall keep modifying it. The clutch will be the next thing, make it a little bit better to change gear. Yeah, and that's about it.
This is the prototype engine that Norton's developed in 1958-59. It was the first crankshaft to use the 1.75 diameter. The main bearings are 50% bigger than the standard Dominator, and it's 6.33 cc. It's very short stroke. The original engine was designed by Bert Hopwood, even though he denied it. The development work was done by Brian Jones and Doug Hill, and the drawings was done by John Priest. It was developed at Bracebridge Street. The whole complete, all the castings and all the parts were thrown in our skip, and all the parts were taken out by Bob Collier. It ended up at Fair Spares, and I got all the parts, and I built one engine into a featherbed frame, slimline featherbed, but this one is in a 1965 N15 CS frame that was exported to Canada to Prairie motorcycles. The engine was built by Richard Negus. The crankshaft was made by Norwich. It's had a new crank, new conrods by Thunder Race Engineering. The rockers was developed by, was machined from the EN24T by the late Malcolm Saggers, brilliant engineer. The idea for the frame and put the engine into the frame was John Preston, and the original engine would have gone in a oil-bearing Pluto frame, but basically this bike with this engine should not exist.